In today's episode, we are talking prenatals. I had a patient come in the other day. She's wanting to get pregnant, and she was telling me about how she was taking a gummy prenatal. Now let's just talk about why we have people taking prenatals. Typically, the standard American woman or person is about 70%, or about 70% of America is deficient in nutrients. And it can take 6 to 9 months to bring the body up to sufficient levels. So when we talk to our patients about pregnancy and filling the tank to grow life, it's really important that we're talking nutrients. So I wanted to bring Jill in because this patient of mine is taking a gummy prenatal for her prenatal care, and it just wasn't sufficient. And so I brought Jill so that we could talk about why. And Jill she reps Metagenics Midwest, and I have been doing business with Metagenics and Jill for 20 years.
Yes.
And she is a wealth of knowledge. So
it will be my 29th year of doing this.
It's amazing. Yeah,
we grew up with Metagenics.
Yeah, we did, didn't we?
Yeah.
I know. We raised babies through Metagenics.
We did.
So I think we both have such a passion for this topic. Jill's actually the one that got me started on prenatal care because I was newly pregnant and I didn't know anything about it.
And I just read and read and read,
Yeah.
and it's a hot topic.
It's amazing. So, so this particular patient had what we call PCOS, or polycystic ovarian. She had been diagnosed with that. And then she said, I don't really think I have, because and so polycystic ovarian is, you have irregular periods, there's a certain morphology, there's a lot of inflammation.
Right.
People can be diabetic, they can have digestive gut issues. There's a whole host of
it's inflammation, blood sugar, testosterone is high.
So maybe just talk to that a little bit.
And estrogen testosterone rate is not balanced, and so there's a relationship to endocrine disruptors and PCOS, and just not genetically being able to handle the endocrine disruptors, and so you get higher testosterone as a female.
And then we get cysts forming
right
in our organs, and it can cause infertility. I think I read like 80% of women with PCOS are infertile.
Oh, it's so sad.
It's really sad.
Yeah.
So especially when we're talking about getting pregnant, getting somebody on a high quality prenatal is it's critical.
It is.
So this particular patient, I was talking to her about the Metagenics. I don't think, to me, it's the highest standard on the market, and I'm sure you probably would agree.
I would.
And what we love about it is because it's a whole packet system. So it has every single nutrient that somebody would need to basically fill their nutritional tank to grow life.
Right.
And so this particular product, this patient said to me, I'm taking this gummy prenatal. And usually when people say I'm taking the gummies, not the weed gummies, but I kind of cringe because you and I both know that the levels of nutrients are so low, right?
Exactly.
And so this particular one, when I pulled it up, I said, it has window dressing. And window dressing means that if I tell you these are the markers of a good quality.
Right, DHA, magnesium, choline.
Yep. Or even third-party tested or organic or non-GMO, you can put all of that stuff in there. So it had all of the things on the front of the label. And then when I flipped it over and I looked at it, the amounts were so insufficient.
Exactly. So it's on the window, but it's not enough to be therapeutic.
Yeah.
That's what window dressing is.
Yeah, exactly.
It's marketing.
It's marketing, exactly.
It's not
really
about
good
healthcare.
marketing. Pretty labels.
Right.
So we really wanted to have the conversation about comparing and what that means. So when we're talking about a prenatal, I know you taught me, I always think fish oil, that was always the number one for me, and you got me started on that.
Yeah.
And so, especially for brain and nervous system development, we know that the first thing to form in utero is the brain and nervous system.
When you don't even know you're pregnant yet.
Exactly.
Yeah, the first 6 weeks.
Do you want to talk a little bit about the baseline nutrients then?
So she's talking about EPA and DHA, and DHA is what is more important with pregnancy because DHA is what helps form the brain. And they've actually done studies that show that if mother took DHA during gestation, that baby at 4 years old had higher IQ than the babies that didn't have DHA.
It's amazing.
So A, IQ, everybody
Yeah.
wants that. B, they also showed that the infant slept deeper and longer if gestationally mom had DHA.
And that's, who doesn't want that?
I mean, yes, so we must. And then I do want to remind us that we've all heard this term baby brain, right? That she can't think straight, mom can't think straight. And that can be alleviated with mom taking fish oil.
Yeah.
She'll be able to connect the neurons easier to get to where are my keys.
Yeah.
And that includes breastfeeding.
And
right?
it's a
Because
thing.
breastfeeding, I mean, they're even sucking more nutrient out of you during breastfeeding. And so this is, they changed the name from the word prenatal to +1 because they wanted to teach us that actually during nursing, you need to continue to take it.
Yeah. And I think it's really powerful because we don't think of, I think of nutrition in the form of like a fuel tank, is that most people are walking around half empty, if not close to empty.
Right.
And so they don't even recognize that they've got to fill that tank to begin with. And of course, a lot of the prenatals that you and I have both, I'm sure, looked at over the years, I'll look at them and they have synthetic nutrients in them, or this whole, we definitely need to talk about folate and methylfolate.
Right.
Because a lot of them have folic acid, which we know is not a great quality form of folic acid or folate. I don't even know how, like, I say, well, it's not even a nutrient. Is it a nutrient? What would you call it? It's just folic acid.
Well, it depends on your genetic profile.
Sure.
If you can recognize it or not.
Yeah.
So for me, my body wouldn't recognize it, but for others, they might. But let's not take that chance.
Right. Why would we even, like, let's just take the one that everybody's body recognizes, right? So, and we have people, I think I read at one point that it was like 40%. I feel like that number's higher than that.
I agree that they're still coming up with that statistic.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
So we like to assume that people have methylation issues, and what that is that's your body being able to take the building blocks of your food and your nutrients and put them into usable forms. And people can get one copy from mom, one copy from dad, or one from each parent, which I think when you have 2 copies like that, you are 70% poor methylator.
Right.
And if you have 1 copy, I think it's like 30%, something like that, poor methylator. So you're a little bit better, but still, like, let's get and so the reason that folate's so important is because of that neural tube. This is where we get into birth defects.
Yes.
So let's talk about the amounts of folate that we need to have for pregnancy.
So in 2020, FDA changed how to label folic acid. So it was micrograms, like we are used to, and they changed it to DFE.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Designated folate amount. What is it? DFE. Daily food equivalent.
Okay.
Boom.
Nice.
That's
Good
what
job.
it is. Daily food equivalent. In other words, the microgram does not equate 1-to-1 ratio with this DFE ratio. So it was 800 micrograms is what we were recommending, and now it's 1200 DFE.
Okay.
So there's no direct equation that I have memorized other than it's a new standard.
It needs to be higher than 400.
It does need to be higher than 400, yes, especially DFE.
Yeah. So if we have, if we know we have methylation issues, just in general, from a chronic health perspective, people who have chronic illnesses, that number, I usually try to get them on at least 800 methylated folate, micrograms, 800 micrograms. We can worry about the DFE later. But then with pregnancy, we're looking at pushing over 1,000. But again, how many women don't start taking prenatals until they find out they're pregnant?
Right.
I think women of all childbearing ages should be on prenatals, because then how many unexpected pregnancies are there? You know?
And it's that first 6 weeks when the nervous system is developing. So let's rattle off this term methylation, because that can be one of those, oh,
Right.
What is that? Okay, so neurotube defect, yes. There is a relationship to developing the closing of the spine, right? And then B, it also helps mom break down toxins, right? Excretion and detoxification. And so if mom doesn't have methylated folate, then toxins that she's exposed to in her body care, in her food, in her breathing, in her water, then they are recirculating in her system, and baby is exposed to more toxins because she can't get them into the urine to excrete them.
You know, that is really interesting, because we also know that how many toxins have been found in cord blood? Is it over 200?
It was
Yeah.
it was the CDC testing cord blood, and it was like 6,000 Americans,
Yeah.
and every chemical that was in the Americans, all 200 that were tested, all the Americans had those, and the cord blood had
So
those.
scary. So scary.
Yeah.
So, you know, this too is, I always say, like, I really want to get my young women detoxing.
Yeah.
And, you
Like,
know,
give me 3 months.
give me 3 months, really. So this patient who was taking the gummy prenatal, she was saying, you know, she was trying to get pregnant when she first came in a few months ago. And I said, you can't. I said, you can't, because of this polycystic ovarian
Right.
that she was suspected to have. And also, just historically, we know that we're exposed to so many toxic chemicals. Like, why not take 3 to 6 months to clean up properly, right? Clean up the liver,
Exactly.
give your body the power that it needs to, you're growing life, for God's sakes. And this is where too, like, I always get so mad when they come in and they're like, oh yeah, my doctor just said, go to CVS and get whatever you can find. And it's like, you're growing life. Like, that's not an answer.
So that segues me to, I had someone bring me their prenatal that the physician at University of Michigan gave them. So in other words, the insurance covers it prenatal.
Yeah.
Let's go there.
Yeah, right.
And guess what was in there? Red dye number 3.
Oh, God. Oh, my God.
In a prenatal. Red dye number 3, which, let's just remind everybody
Yeah.
that that's what was in lipstick.
Yes.
And they pulled it out of lipstick decades ago. And then that's the one that just in January they pulled it out.
Yeah.
But we still have red dye number 40 out there and so on. But number 3 was in
Unbelievable.
the prescribed, here is your best, cheap form.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to rattle off for folks of I'm reading a prenatal label, what are the things I'm looking for?
Yeah.
You betcha,
Okay,
red
let's do
dye,
it.
or any dye.
Yeah.
Why do we
anything.
have to have colored
Yeah.
pills?
Well, and if it says natural and artificial flavors, ding, ding, ding. Like,
It's a pill.
you're taking it for good health. What about good health is artificial? Like,
Okay, so no dyes
Yeah.
in your prenatal. Please look
In your
at
supplements at all.
additional ingredients.
Yeah.
Okay, number 2 is the form of iron.
Yes.
So we've all heard about fatigue and pregnancy and napping and iron deficiency. It's quite common. Iron oxide is literally rust shavings, the poorest form of absorbable iron there is, and it's the most constipating.
Yeah.
So if it's iron oxide, boot.
Oh, so then guess what happens? You're taking that prenatal. I'm constipated.
Yeah.
They tell you it's because you're pregnant, but then they give you the stool softener. Like, what?
Right.
Like, it's so.
And you
Can we
become
just-
more toxic if you can't eliminate. And then you puff, and you puff, and you gain weight.
Ankle swelling.
And preeclampsia
Yeah.
and the spiral.
Yeah.
Okay, so iron glycinate, my friends, is a chelated form of iron. And so what that means is it's iron bound to 2 glycine molecules, that's an amino acid, and they easily separate to make that iron available in the GI tract.
Yeah.
And there you go.
And it does not cause constipation.
It does not cause constipation.
Which I think some of those other minerals as well. We have magnesium oxide, zinc oxide. We have all
That's
of
right.
those. And And
Cheap.
Jill and I we've done another video on forms of magnesium and forms of calcium, so you can go reference those. But that's the other thing too, is that something can have this window dressing that we talked about earlier.
Right.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that the forms that are in it or the amounts that are in it are sufficient. And I know we talked about also, what was the nutrient, the choline, right? Yeah. So we talked about choline being so important for brain health when you're pregnancy, and of course then for the baby, the forming of the baby.
Right.
And the amount, so it was, we said what, choline bitartrate.
Bitartrate.
Right?
Yep, and it was 450 milligrams.
In
the good one.
In the good one, right? And I think this one had what, 20? 20.
20.
Yeah. So
it doesn't even count.
It doesn't even count. If you want good brain power for you and your baby, so this is why I wanted to have this conversation, because it's so important. And listen, I do appreciate that somebody is like trying to check the boxes. I do want to give them credit for that they didn't just go get like a
that there's choline in it at all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like they were like, let me look for these things. But then the education just needs to keep moving up. And so that's why this conversation is so important, because we want to make sure that, again, you're growing life. And this is just so key, because we'll see birth defects if you think you're taking the proper nutrients, and then we see
it's a big statement.
It is.
And it's heavy on mom's heart the whole way through. And so we just want to provide mom with every tool possible to grow the most beautiful, happy, napping baby that she can, right?
Yeah.
So choline is to form the whole GI tube from top to bottom. And so it's to prevent leaky gut and gastrointestinal disturbances when baby is born. And then choline is also to form the eyeballs healthy.
Okay.
Right? And that's early
that
the eyeballs are being formed. And so choline is a big deal.
Well, and I think getting choline on deck to get the gut tube developed is key, because then also if we can get the structure, because we know that baby doesn't, takes 2 to 4 years to develop all of the good gut microbiome.
Right.
Baby's not going to stay in us that long. We don't want that. So we have to have the foundation there.
Right.
And so at least, like you said, coming out with an intact, meaning like not leaky gut, right?
Right.
And then now we can go in and we can start to colonate it with all the good stuff. But yeah, so this whole going back to where we started in the beginning with the prenatal, it really begs a little bit more due diligence from people, and we certainly don't expect people to be as well versed as we are, but we do want to be able to provide you with enough information to then make sure you're getting the proper products. And I know, with Metagenics, I told her this too the other day, that I looked at the cost of the prenatal. Let's talk about that, because people will say to me, Metagenics is more expensive, and I'll say, let me do the cost comparison for you. So when we start comparing, so that particular, let's just say, what was it, a 10, 20 fold difference? Or was it 20 to 400, something like that?
On the gummy?
On the gummy.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So it was $25 for a 1 month supply.
At the 2 a day.
At the 2 a day. And it was 20 and 2.
Right. And I think you said you had to take 10.
I had to take 10 of them to get the proper dosage that you would need.
And it still wouldn't match all of the nutrients, because carnitine wasn't in there either.
Oh, right. That's right. Yeah. So that's where we say, and I'll say this, the most expensive supplement is the one that doesn't work.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the cheap one that doesn't work. So you spend $25 for a supplement, but it's not working. And then again, you're growing life.
It's weak.
And
yes.
what is that, the cost to that? So.
And then let's talk about gummies, that sugar can be a big part of gummies. And I shared with you that a chiropractor that I work with had his patient, who happened to be a police officer, bring her gummies in to look at, is this worth your time? And she was ingesting 36 grams of sugar every morning in her gummies.
Oh my God.
That's like having a Coca-Cola every morning.
It's amazing.
That's not okay.
And what were the insufficient nutrients in there
Yeah,
too? Like,
yeah.
is it even?
It snowballs.
Right.
So they have to make room for the flavor, for the sweetener, for the gummy part, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where the nutrients take a back seat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And didn't you say, just speak to this for a minute, because you were talking about how some of the nutrients can bind, if it's not made properly.
Yeah.
Can
So
bind,
bioavailability
yes,
is what
and
you're
become
saying.
inert, yeah.
And so there's some nutrients that the gummy, like it's actually minerals.
Okay.
So when they put minerals into a gummy, they get bound up and they're not bioavailable. So there's some nutrients that are okay in gummies, but not all. And so is that company doing assays to ensure that we're taking it up?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I mean, again, going back to Metagenics, it's a third-party assay all day, every day, per batch.
Yes.
Not spot testing, not once a year,
Right.
but it's per batch. So we love that.
And disintegration assays.
Yeah.
So disintegration assays is they put it in this jostulating machine that mimics your gastrointestinal stomach. So every batch, they're putting a pill or two in this jostle, and does it disintegrate within 30 minutes?
Oh my gosh, I did not know that one.
Yeah,
That's a new one.
so disintegration assay,
okay.
every batch.
Yeah, so we know that it's going to
Because we've heard how people poop out solid pills
yeah.
because of the coatings that are on them.
I see them on x-ray. I mean, it's crazy, right? So you're like, again, the most expensive one is the cheap one that doesn't work.
Sad.
Yeah. So, and I think too, just speaking back to the gummy, because I know some people go to the gummies because they say they can't take pills.
Right.
So we have some solutions for that, but I'm going to let you talk about that because I know we discussed that yesterday. So let's talk about what we would do for somebody who just, and especially when you're pregnant, like we certainly understand the whole, like, I'm nauseous, I just can't take a pill. What can I do to make sure that I'm hedging my bets for my body's brain and the baby's development?
So the first thing that comes to mind when you say that is when you're pregnant, your entire digestive tract slows down. And the body in its wisdom is trying to absorb everything that you are eating to have enough micronutrient for the sweet baby. And so the first thing to do is to actually do digestive support. Right, is using digestive enzymes, hydrochloric acid, to help with moving that food down and get gastric emptying so that you don't have it sitting in the stomach for too long, i.e. nausea.
Yeah.
Right? And so every time you eat, doing something, digestive bitters, if you got to have liquid, something to help with gastric emptying so that it's not such a nauseous experience.
Yeah.
And then keeping blood sugar balanced with using protein as your food source, because blood sugar being too low is why there's morning nausea. Right, for pregnancy. And so one of the tricks is to use a protein powder before you go to bed to help with blood sugar not getting too low for the morning.
It's so powerful because I know, again, going back 21 years when I was pregnant, I got started on the Ultrameal. And we'll have a whole nother conversation about protein powders because I think that begs a good conversation as well.
Right.
But I got started on the Ultrameal, and people, they are kind of shocked when I say, oh, I do an Ultrameal shake every day. It's sitting up there. I made it.
Yeah,
when you
just had mine.
Every single day. I've done it for 20 years, just about. And my feet would hit the ground when I was pregnant, and I'd go straight into the kitchen. I did mine in the morning, was when I felt my, that real need to do that. And then I might do another one later in the day if I needed to. But it was a lifesaver.
Right.
And I never got swollen ankles. I never had digestive upset. Like it was really a game changer, I think. And then of course just the high quality nutrients and getting all the good protein and the minerals and
right. Which is like the prenatal, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's our point here, is that you can get micronutrients with a powder.
Yes, and to speak to the powder real quick, is we refer to it as a protein powder, but it's really a whole, I say it's my multivitamin.
Right.
I don't always take a multivitamin because there's so many nutrients, so nutrient dense. So we really, if you can find something that is super nutrient dense like that, then that can serve, and then we can add in some other things that might be beneficial, like the additional folate, which is a tiny tab. I think
micro tab.
Micro tab. Yeah.
So things to be concerned with is vitamin A. I think we're all aware of that. And then I probably wouldn't use a protein powder with herbs in it, because we don't have studies that pregnant women have volunteered to say, oh, I'll be your study participant on this particular herb. No, there are no studies on pregnancy with herbs, and so it's just a caution. And I love herbs, but we don't want to suggest things that we don't have research on. So
and
vitamin A, herbs.
Yeah. And there's a lot of protein supplement powders out there that have all the things, right?
Yes.
And they'll have a whole herb section, and people are like, it looks amazing. It's got all the things in it.
Yes.
Not recognizing that you can't just dump it all in, because
there's
they
pH
can offset.
problems.
Yeah, they can offset each other. So, it's a thing.
It is a thing.
Yeah.
I agree. So rattle off some things to consider with pregnancy is protein powder. When we were pregnant, it was recommended to have 80, 90 grams of protein a day. And now it's a
Over
gram
100.
per pound of body weight.
Yeah. Ideal body weight, but still,
Yes.
But even just trying to push that up to over 100.
So let's just go with don't
impossible,
stress, but this is why a protein powder is helpful, because it could be a quick way to get, another 15 to 20 grams of protein into the system. Okay, so protein to help with building said baby, because that's how you get amino acids. And so then you get blood sugar balancing and so on. Okay, so protein, digestive support. The prenatal, which has the fish oil for the brain, has the choline for the brain and the eyeballs and the tube. Okay, other things is magnesium. Magnesium can be low, and there's a relationship, and I'm not saying causal, but there's a relationship of preeclampsia and magnesium. Not to mention cramps. I certainly remember being in bed pregnant, getting cramps, and you need more magnesium to help prevent that, and potassium would be a piece of pie here too.
I think all minerals. I mean, everyone's so deficient in all the minerals.
Yeah.
And just the whole conversation about, and I'm sort of like checking off, like, we need to do a future video on what does it mean to be mineral deficient? And that'll be coming down the line. But I think if we just make the assumption, especially if you're wanting to get pregnant, that you are deficient, just period, because you are going to have to give everything you have to the baby, to the growing baby. And then if you're going to nurse after, you're giving even more. So, and then of course, talking about once post baby, so whether you nurse or not, a lot of women will just stop the prenatal, and then maybe they get pregnant within a year or two after that, and then they're like, I'm pregnant again, I should start taking my prenatal. Well, baby number one just sucked everything out of you. What are you going to give to baby number two?
It's so real.
And that is really the key. Like there's, they've done some studies where they've shown like subsequent babies have more learning disabilities, more defects, more chronic
risk.
health issues, definitely more at risk. So, so we definitely want to
allergies.
All of it. So we want to encourage you to make sure that you want to keep taking it. You know, like I say, keep taking it in your childbearing years. I mean, it's not going to harm you, right? So, yeah.
And so it's this delicate balance of what is helping. Let's not do too much of this. Okay, you need more of that. That's where having a good coach on board is helpful, because you can't memorize all of this. Yeah. And it changes per trimester.
Just when you think you have it figured out, it's gone.
Yes. Well, so there's hope. That's really what our message is there are things that you can do, and you don't have to just suffer. And please reconsider using red dye number 3 in your prenatal and just check that
And
first.
anywhere, just anywhere.
Any colors.
Yeah, just go check every supplement you have for food dyes and artificial whatevers.
Remember, in Europe, they don't allow any
Yes.
food colorings in children's products
Yeah.
at all, because there is such a relationship to hyperactivity and brain disorders with food colorings.
Well, and this was my mom back in the 70s, because my brother was hyperactive and she found the Feingold diet. And he said,
Awesome.
no artificial sweeteners, flavors, colors. And she was like, okay. And she got rid of all of that stuff. And that's just how I grew up. And she taught us how to read food labels. And so I promise you, if a single mother in the 70s raising 4 kids on food stamps can do this,
Yes.
you can too.
You just have to read labels.
It's a commitment. It's just a commitment to you and your family and your family's health. And of course, like I say, if you're thinking of having a family, it's a commitment to you. And I don't want to end this yet without having the conversation about men, because we touched on that yesterday.
Yes.
And I think that, women, we get so, it's like the men are off the hook on all of it for no good reason.
No, they're not.
No good reason. So tell me a little bit about what we were talking about yesterday. Talk about that and why men need to be doing their own prenatal care.
So the latest research, and we're talking about endocrine disrupting and influence of testosterone and estrogens on said baby. They showed that men's sperm is 60 days old. And so 60 days ago's behavior of alcohol, pot, toxins is what's making that sperm for the baby right now. And so, of course, it's much easier for a guy to take 2 simple months of cleaning up his act to get ready for a baby, where with a woman, we're asking for 3 months, but that's probably just a low number.
Yeah,
but okay, we'll say 3 months because we
if
said
you give
it.
us 3 months,
Yes,
yeah.
we can clean up shop. So 60 days is when you are affecting your sperm, and they showed in research that the men's sperm is what affects the male baby and his endocrine disruption tendencies.
So meaning the baby would be more at risk for endocrine disrupting diseases.
Estrogens,
Okay.
of
Okay.
environmental estrogens affecting the baby.
And then where do we land on plastics in the testicles? That's a whole other conversation, but we're going to touch on it.
I feel like we are learning as a community,
Yeah.
because that was only, I want to say May or June of
this is
last
new.
year that study came out.
Yeah.
And isn't it interesting that we as a community can have that conversation in such a short period of time? So I'm celebrating that we as a community are waking up, and that they did a study looking at microplastics in dog testes and male testes. And of course, the human testes had more microplastics, but all of them had the microtestes. And one of my physicians said, well, of course, the dog didn't have as much of the microplastics because they're not as old.
Oh,
And so they don't have as much time to harbor the microplastics. And so there is a relationship of those microplastics in the testes of lowered testosterone in our gentlemen and more xenoestrogens, which is the environmental estrogens from plastics.
Yeah.
So plastic kind of mimics the structure of estrogen, is how you would visualize this. So that's why we're looking for that 60 days and 90 days in our sweet ladies is let's not drink out of plastic bottles anymore, friends. That it's just a no.
And everything we do is plastic. I feel like it's unavoidable, but also that's where a good detox and being conscious of, even when you buy, you go to the store, and if you buy pre-packaged vegetables, That's plastics.
I know. Trader Joe's, it just kills me. Everything's in plastic, and then it's like wet in there, so then you get the moisture leaching the plastic.
We're not going to avoid it. I think we have to just sort of, sometimes I say bless it and move along.
Right.
But then also using things that are within your power of, you can get a stainless steel water bottle and refill it with filtered water from your home. Or,
right.
There's definitely things that you can do. I don't know if anybody's still heating things in the microwave in plastic. I don't even have a microwave.
You bet they are because of frozen meals.
Well, that's true. Yes.
In the package.
And the heating in the frozen, even if you put it in the oven, the black plastic carryout containers, they're made from, was it recycled rubber? Recycled electronics.
X-ray
and electronics film. With all of the heavy metals in them and the lead, and so all of that's going into the food. So we're trying.
You're killing me.
As I said, we just need to bless it and move along.
And so you got to support liver function, my friends, but not while pregnant.
Yeah.
Okay, liver function. You don't want to dislodge toxins in a pregnant fat cell.
Yeah.
Right. So this is the preparation of get the old stock out.
So I think the bottom line is yes, detox, detox, detox. We've been talking detox for 20 years. And I always tell people like at least twice a year. And then I like people to be on a little bit of ultra clear powder.
Exactly.
Every single day.
Yeah.
So that is my daily nutritional shake is a scoop of ultra clear and a scoop of ultra meal. I get my protein. It helps keep my liver flowing nice and freely, getting the toxins out. Nothing's a guarantee, but I'm hedging my bets, right?
Yeah. Keeps your brain healthy.
Yeah.
Where's my keys? Where's my keys are easy to get to that memory.
And the whole hormonal, menopause, all of that stuff going on. So, so I think just to wrap it up, so what we're really trying to encourage people to do is make sure you're detoxing, and then you're looking further into high quality supplementation for growing life, men and women. And then Jill touched on it earlier, is that so here in this office, we do curated, customized nutritional plans. So it would be, I think it would be wise to, it doesn't have to be me as a functional medicine practitioner, but finding somebody who is skilled, who can say, this is what you need to be. Maybe it's just a couple of consultations to make sure you're in the right direction, getting you on the proper foods, the proper nutritional plan for you and your spouse and your growing baby or your baby to be.
There's hope.
Yeah, so I think it's worth the investment for sure to make sure that you're going in the right direction with your nutrients. And did we talk about everything? Was that everything we talked about yesterday?
The only thing was that there's carnitine in the +1 prenatal, and carnitine was studied by the OB-GYN that created the product. There's actually a whole well baby study on this prenatal that was done on Medicare patients and functional medicine patients so that we could see, are there micronutrient differences in these populations? But carnitine was low in all of the ladies tested. And what was fascinating is that the ladies reported after being a month or two on the +1 supplement with carnitine added is that they had more energy and they didn't need to nap as much.
Yeah.
And I remember the nap being very important through
big one.
pregnancy. Yeah.
That's a big one.
Anyways, so that's a great.
Yeah.
She doesn't feel so exhausted.
Yeah.
Because it's part of the mitochondria.
Well, and then you got to raise that darn baby. Right?
It's just begun.
It's just begun.
Yeah, so you guys can do it. There's hope. This is not meant to be overwhelming. It's to show you that there's things that you can do, and it doesn't have to be fear-based of what if.
Right. And that we can lead you in the right direction for sure. So I hope this was helpful for you. Please leave a comment. Is this something you've always wondered about? And if you know somebody who is looking to get pregnant, then please share this video with them because this is important information. And we'll make sure that I know we talked about a few studies, so we're gonna put those links into the show notes for you as well for your reference. And if you have any questions whatsoever, please reach out. feel free to schedule an appointment and we can get your curated nutritional plan on deck. So, all right. Thanks so much for being with me today.
My pleasure.
Okay. All right. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Bye.